We've all been there. I mean, you know the moment. It's late, maybe on a holiday night.
Oh, absolutely. The family table.
Right, and the family table suddenly becomes this surprisingly ruthless arena for calculating rents and bankruptcies.
We are, of course, talking about Monopoly,
Mm.
the board game that sometimes feels less about fun and more like distilled economic anxiety.
And yet it's held its place as a cultural icon for 90 years. 9 decades.
It's one of the world's most recognizable and, frankly, most infuriating pieces of family entertainment. That shared experience of fighting over the little metal dog or the thimble, it's universal.
That kind of staying power is just incredible in the entertainment world, and when we see that, we usually just chalk it up to nostalgia, but our mission today is to go a bit deeper.
Mhm.
This isn't just a story about rolling dice, it's really a masterclass in how a very sophisticated, very strategic use of intellectual property has kept this game dominant for so long.
We're talking trademarks, copyright, patents, and licensing. And to really get how the game survived, you have to start at its beginning, which is just full of irony.
It's an amazing twist.
Yeah, because if you believe the common story that Charles Darrow, this wealthy guy, invented it during the Great Depression, you're missing the part that makes this IP story so much richer.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. The game's true precursor was called the Landlord's game, and it was invented by a woman named Elizabeth Magie.
Who patented it all the way back in 1904.
And her goal wasn't to make a commercial hit. It was to educate people.
Fascinating, right? She designed her game to illustrate a very specific political idea, the evils of land monopolization.
It was based on the principles of an economist, Henry George, and his single tax theory. So it wasn't just a game, it was a teaching tool.
A piece of social commentary you could play on your dining room table.
And the rules she designed really drove that lesson home, didn't they? It wasn't just about total dominance like the version we play.
Precisely. Her game actually had 2 different sets of rules. One set, the one designed to show the negative side, was all about accumulating property and bankrupting everyone else.
That's the path we know.
That's Monopoly.
Right.
But the second set of rules, and this was arguably her whole point, was designed to show how a single land tax system could benefit everyone.
So how did that work in the game?
In that version, when money went into a central pot, it was used to improve public services for all the players. It actively discouraged that kind of ruthless accumulation of wealth.
So it was literally a game with 2 moral paths, one showing monopoly capitalism and the other showing a sort of collectivist economic benefit. The contrast is just astonishing.
And then you see what happened next. Maggie sold her patent to Parker Brothers for just $500.
Oh.
She thought they'd use it to spread her ideas. But then Charles Darrow comes along, makes his own version, which gets super popular during the Depression because it played into that fantasy of getting rich.
The accumulation fantasy.
Exactly. So Parker Brothers buys Darrow's version, turns it into the modern game we know, and pretty much erases Maggie's critical anti-monopoly role from the history books.
A business co-opting a piece of political IP and then turning the protest itself into the product. Amazing. And now Hasbro, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, owns the rights.
It's the perfect setup for the next 90 years of survival. So how do you protect a brand built on such deep irony?
It comes down to a layered defense. Let's start with the absolute foundation of it all, trademarks.
Trademarks are all about protecting the brand's identity. It's about preventing consumer confusion. For Monopoly, this protection is the bedrock of everything.
It ensures that no matter how many versions they release, you always know exactly what you're buying. We know the name Monopoly is trademarked, but I'm curious, with a 90-year-old brand that's global, do they have to trademark Boardwalk or Park Place in every single language?
Well, that's where it gets complex.
Yeah.
The core protection really centers on the main identifiers. The word mark, that stylized writing of Monopoly, is absolutely protected.
The logo itself.
Yes, but even more strategically important is the brand architecture around it. The mascot, Mr. Monopoly, and that fundamental aesthetic. Those are the things that cross language barriers.
I see. So whether you're playing in London or Tokyo, the little man in the top hat is the same.
And that visual consistency is a critical trademark enforcement point.
So let's say a rival company releases a game. They're free to make a game about real estate, but they absolutely cannot use that font, that logo, or a mustachioed man in a top hat.
Or they risk immediate legal action. It's all about marketplace confusion.
Right.
The whole point of trademark law isn't just to stop direct copying, it's to make sure consumers aren't tricked into buying an imitation. So if a rival made a game called, say, Capitalist Climb, but used a logo that looked a lot like the Monopoly logo.
Even if it's not identical?
Exactly. Even if it just evokes the memory of the original, it could be seen as infringement because it muddies the brand's identity in the mind of the consumer.
It's about the integrity of that signal to the buyer. Okay, so trademarks protect the recognizable identity. What about the physical board itself? The layout, the art on the community chess cards, the colors.
Now we're moving into copyright territory.
A different layer of protection.
A much thicker layer. If trademarks protect the source, who made it, copyright protects the artistry, how it looks and feels.
So even if someone uses a completely different name for their game, they can't just copy the visual arrangement of the board.
That's right. And what falls under this protection is pretty much everything visual and textual that isn't purely functional.
So the layout of the property.
The specific arrangement, yes. The artwork on the chance cards, the design of the paper money, the rule book, even the unique design of the game pieces.
The little metal tokens.
All of it. It's the specific selection and arrangement of all those creative choices that gets protected.
But I have to ask, what about something really small? Like, is the typeface used on the Go space copyrightable on its own? That seems like a very fine line.
It is a fine line, and that's often where legal battles happen. Individual letters from a common typeface, usually not copyrightable alone.
Okay.
However, the selection, coordination, and arrangement of all those elements together, the way the text interacts with the color blocks and the graphics that combined creative expression, is absolutely protected.
So copying one tiny element might be defensible, but copying the whole visual synergy of the board is a clear infringement.
You've got it.
This brings us to a really crucial distinction that I think trips a lot of people up with game IP. Copyright protects the look. But what about the idea? The idea of rolling dice, moving a piece, and buying property.
And that is the essential limit of copyright law for games. Copyright does not protect underlying game mechanics, ideas, or functional concepts.
Why not?
It's rooted in a really important principle that ideas have to be free for others to build on and evolve. It spurs innovation.
So the basic mechanism of roll and move, or the concept of accumulating real estate, that's fair game for anyone to use.
Precisely. And that's why you see so many successful games that use dice rolling and purchasing property. They just have to express those ideas with completely different art, different layouts, different iconography.
Can you give an example?
Well, think about the game of life. It shares a general theme of financial management and moving along a track. But every single visual cue, the pacing, the card designs, it's all completely distinct.
They respected Monopoly's copyright on its specific visual expression.
Meticulously, while using those underlying, unprotected functional concepts.
That detailed separation is really the key to successful IP management. Knowing where your protection ends and where creativity has to begin for your competitors.
Yep.
Which brings us to the third pillar, patents. This is for the functional ideas, and unlike the others, this one comes with a clock.
An expiration date. Monopoly's original specific game mechanics were once protected by patents.
How does that work?
A patent is designed to grant a temporary monopoly over a useful functional invention like the specific mechanism of combining roll and move with property acquisition rules. In exchange, you have to disclose how it works.
And the consequence of that expiration is that those functional mechanics, they enter the public domain.
That's the deal. And this is why thousands of games today can freely borrow those core ideas, rolling dice, buying properties, charging rent, without paying Hasbro a single penny. The mechanics are a shared resource now.
It's a built-in feature of IP law, then. Function has to become public knowledge eventually to spur more innovation.
Right. And here's the great synthesis point for all this. Once the patent on the function expires, the creative expression, your trademarks and your copyrights, they become your entire barrier to entry.
So Hasbro loses control over the core mechanic.
But maintains ironclad control over its identity and its aesthetic.
So if a creator today wants to make a better property acquisition game, they're totally free to use the dice rolling mechanic.
Totally free.
But they have to spend a ton of resources creating a completely unique look, a unique mascot, and a unique brand name.
And that's a huge commercial hurdle. Designing an entirely new, engaging aesthetic that can compete with 90 years of brand recognition for Mr. Monopoly and those familiar street names. It's incredibly difficult, even if your game is technically better.
That brings us to the last, and maybe the most important, strategic element, licensing. Protection is static, but licensing is the engine that has kept this brand thriving for 90 years.
Smart licensing is the definition of leveraging your IP. Just think about the hundreds of themed versions out there.
Marvel Monopoly, National Parks Monopoly.
Versions for specific college towns. This isn't just Hasbro's internal development. It's a really sophisticated collaboration with other massive IP owners.
So it's about mutual benefit. It keeps the game culturally relevant.
Absolutely. Monopoly gets exposure to a fan base that might only care about the Marvel Universe, for example. It keeps the game fresh for new generations.
And the partner, say, Disney or a major sports league, gets their brand directly into family homes in a physical format that has real staying power.
It's a very calculated decision. Hasbro has to weigh the cost of licensing an IP like Marvel, which is substantial, against the certainty that a themed edition will sell far more than another standard edition. It's a mathematical calculation of brand synergy.
And it lets the game constantly pivot and evolve. It's not stuck in 1930s Atlantic City anymore. It can become contemporary, all while leaning on the trust built by those core trademarks and copyrights.
Monopoly has achieved true staying power. It's transcended being just a product. It's a cultural institution.
And that legacy, that constant refreshing of the brand, is all supported by that strong IP protection. It's not an accident.
It's deliberate brand stewardship. They are expert curators of their own IP, managing the brand's identity, and look to ensure it evolves without ever getting brand fatigue.
So when we put all these pieces together, what's the big picture? We've got the three foundational layers of protection.
Trademarks for the core identity and the mascot.
Copyright for the specific aesthetic, the look and feel.
And patents, which protected the initial function, but their expiration forced an even stronger focus on those visual layers.
And all of this is kept relevant and alive through smart licensing.
Which brings us right back to the powerful irony that started our conversation. A game created to warn against the dangers of land monopolization
Has become one of the most commercially successful and globally protected pieces of corporate intellectual property in history.
The anti-monopoly game became its own protected monopoly.
It's the ultimate lesson in the power of legal protection. As Monopoly marks 90 years, its legacy is a really powerful reminder that creative work can become tradition. But it's the intellectual property, the trademark, the copyright, the license that acts as the scaffolding to preserve that tradition for decades. So when you look at the creative works being launched today of a new streaming show, a new app, the real question is, does its underlying IP strategy have the resilience and the complexity to survive for the next 90 years?